Welcome to the Will Evans Show. This podcast is meant to teach you everything you did not learn in school. So if you're sitting here thinking, I don't know how to budget, I don't know where my money's going, I need some help, then this is the podcast for you. Today we're going to be talking about how much Americans have in the bank and how much they're living paycheck to paycheck. Let's go. When it comes to the baby steps, saving is a huge part of the baby steps. So you got baby step 1, you're saving $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. And then once you pay off all your debt in baby step 2, you move into baby step 3, which is saving 3 to 6 months of your for a fully funded emergency fund. And then once you do that, if you're not a homeowner, then you can do baby step 3B, which is saving for a down payment. So all in personal finance, you know this, savings is a huge part of that. And there's so many different ways and so many different types of savings. Do you want to use a regular savings account? Do you want to use a high yield savings account, money market? What do all these mean? And if you were like me, I just kept all my money in my checking account. I didn't even have a savings account when I first started working. So because I was, like most Americans, living paycheck to paycheck. And so that's what we're going to break down. We're going to break down what is the best way to save for vacation, emergency fund, housing, cars. That's what we're going to dive into that. But first, let's look at some stats of how much money do Americans have in the bank. And so there's a research done every year, and it's the state of personal finance, and it breaks down from how much debt do Americans have, how much money do they have in the bank, are they worried about their finances, all of that. Here's some of the numbers that really stood out to me. 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And so that is a huge contributing factor to why Americans have no money in the bank. They have no savings. They're not worth anything. And so 34% of them have $0 in the bank. And about 49% have $1,000 in the bank. So most Americans don't have the money, and that's where that 64% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck comes from. If this is such a huge problem, how do you not live paycheck to paycheck? I've broken out into 3 ways to not live paycheck to paycheck, to get out of that cycle of what everyone else is doing, of just getting by with credit cards and just waiting on the next check to come in. So how do you not live paycheck to paycheck? Number 1, you have to get out of debt. If you have a $500, $700, $1,000 car payment, no wonder you live in paycheck to paycheck. I'm over here with a 2003 Toyota Highlander paid for in cash. My wife's car is paid for in cash. We don't have a car payment. So we have an extra $500, $700, $1,000 in our budget every month that most Americans have, because what do most Americans say they have to have? They have to have a car payment. There's no way they can afford a car. They're not willing to drive a quote-unquote clunker. They have to have the new car, and that's just not true. And so when it comes to it, you have to get out of debt. If you don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, you have to get out of debt. Number 2, you have to live on a budget. We've already talked about this. It was one of the biggest things for me and Kendall that helped our marriage, our finances. It helped everything because we started working together on one goal, one purpose, and that's to manage our money that the Lord has given us well. We've stewarded that money well when you live on a budget, and it just helps you plan. And number 3, you have to be content with what you have. You can't play the comparison game when it comes to this, because when you look at someone else and you see what they have and you wish that you had that, that's where you just start spending willy-nilly, and you you're getting outside of your budget, and that's where if you just have the money in the bank, you're just spending money. And you can't live that way because that leads you into the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. And when it comes to your work, do something that you love. You don't be like those memes that I see of people they can't wait on Friday because they're ready to get out and party and have fun, and they're dreading Monday morning. If that's you, you cannot live that way. That is not for you. So do something that you love. I started a podcast. I started this because this is something that I love. I started coaching people because it's something that I love. We are all gifted with unique skills and talents. Use what the Lord has blessed you with to do something that is meaningful, that you love, and you can make money. Don't sell yourself short. You don't have to, just because you're doing something you love does not mean that you can't make money off of it. So find something that you love, get out of that cycle living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm passionate about helping people get to where they want to be, whether it's with their money, whether it's with their career. I just love seeing people win. I love helping people get to where they want to be. And so, again, that's why I started this show, because it's something that I love to do. So get out there, do something that you want to do, and you can make money off of. Don't sell yourself short. So, but back to living paycheck to paycheck and savings. Once you get out of this cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, where do you put your money? Once you start budgeting and living within your means, you're not playing the comparison game, where do I put this money? Do I keep it in my checking? Do I keep it in my savings? Do I open up a money market? What the heck is a HYSA or a high yield savings account? What is all that? That is what we're going to talk about. That we're going to break that down. When it comes to your emergency fund, which is baby step 3, if you're following the baby steps. And so baby step 3 is 3 to 6 months of a fully funded emergency fund. And so where do I put that? Well, when it comes to that, there's a couple of things that you need to make sure of. If you want to keep it in just a regular savings account at your bank, that's fine. You're just not really going to make any money off of that. But you want it to be liquid, because if an emergency happens, you need to have access to that money. So we're going to talk a little bit. What I do personally. I keep my money in a high yield savings account. We're going to talk about that a little later. And when it comes to vacation, Kendall and I were saving up to go to the beach soon. We went to Disney by paying cash and setting that aside, and we kept that just in a regular savings account. We put money in there monthly to save up, so we know, okay, it's 3 months or 4 months until we're going to the beach, and we need to have X amount of dollars, so we're going to put that into our monthly budget, and we're just going to put it into a savings account. And another thing that is very nice to have is called a sinking fund. And if you don't know what a sinking fund is, sinking funds work like this. So every month you'll set aside money into one, or if you have multiple sinking funds, multiple categories to be used at a later date. That way you're saving up small amounts over a long period of time instead of having to, crap, I need $4,000 for the beach, or $2,000, however much you spend at the beach. So instead of having to pull that money all at once, you're saving for it over a long period of time. Sinking funds are great if for Christmas, for just having a gifts fund, or if you're doing what me and Kendall are doing with saving for a new car. So we're using a sinking fund. So every month we're setting aside $500. We have a goal. So me and Kendall are trying to save $25,000 for a new car. And so we have a goal, and we're having to set aside this amount of money each month to reach our goal. And so that's how a sinking fund works. They're great for saving for a short-term goal. And a lot of what I have sinking funds for is vacation, because Kendall and I, we love to travel. So that's where a lot of our sinking funds are. And also Christmas is a big one. People always freak out when December rolls around and they're like, oh, I don't have any money for Christmas gifts. Like, Christmas didn't change. It's December 25th every single year. So plan ahead. It goes back to budgeting, goes back to having a plan. Plan ahead for your expenses. This is The Will Evans Show. Hey guys, it's Will. I know this show is all about what you didn't learn in school, but for some of you, you need a little more personalized help, and that's what Evans Financial Coaching is. I specialize in helping people pay off debt and build wealth. If this is you, I've put my contact info in the show notes. So please reach out. I'm here to help you. Evans Financial Coaching, creating paths to financial freedom. Welcome back to the Will Evans Show. Today's scripture is from Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent certainly lead to profit, but anyone who is reckless certainly becomes poor. So if you're out there wanting to help me out, help this show out, then I would love for you to like it, share it with your friends. The best thing you can do is tell your friends about it, tell your coworkers about it. And if you want, you can leave a 5-star review. Again, helps with the algorithm, lets more people hear about this show when they're searching for this kind of topic. So if you want to do that, 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. We'll leave the 1 stars for another podcast. So again, that would help me out. Just like it, share it, and also hit the notifications button that way. Every week when we release a new episode, you'll be the first to hear about it. So we were talking about savings, how much Americans don't have in the bank, and what's the best way to save money. I got into it a little bit with your emergency fund. So for those of you on baby step 3, having your 3 to 6 emergency fund, where to put that? And for me, I put mine in a high yield savings account, and these have become very popular. I feel like the past 12 months, just because when housing interest rates go up, so do interest rates that also give you money for having money in the bank. So the biggest question that people always have is, how does my local credit union have a crappy savings interest rate, but these high yield savings accounts, they can offer north of 3% right now with how crazy interest rates have been? And that's because when you look at it, most of these high yield savings accounts, they're online banking. It's not going to be your local credit union. It's not even going to be your big banks as much. It's going to be these just online banking. They get away with it because they don't have a brick and mortar building that they're paying rent, office furniture. They don't have monthly expenses from a building, and so they can be a little bit more generous with their interest rates when it comes to you having money in that bank. And so the biggest thing, looking at where to put your emergency fund, where to put, if you're saving for a house and it's going to be, I would say less than 3 years. If you're saving for something within 3 years, let's keep it out of the market, just because you never know what's going to happen. So a lot of people want to put their money in an index fund, which is great for saving up for something over a long term. But within 3 years, you want to have this much money. Let's just stick with a high yield savings account and get your around 3%, depending on what the market's doing, how the economy is, all that stuff. So we'll stick to that. But you want to make sure that it's liquid. You don't want this to be a CD. CDs are I don't want to say great. They're okay. But the thing with CDs is, if you're having a CD longer than 3 to 6 months, why wouldn't you just put it in the market? Because a CD is not going to do that much for you. But if you take the money out, you lose that interest. Versus a high yield savings account, most of them, you got to read the fine print, but most of them are liquid. And anytime an emergency comes up, I can just transfer money from my high yield savings account to my checking account and use that money. And it's it's usually within a day transfer. It's just like when you transfer from your Venmo to your bank account, it usually takes a day or two to come over. So that's what you're looking for in a high yield savings account with your emergency fund, because you want it to be liquid. You don't want it to be trapped or locked in or anything like that. So stay away from that. So, but let's look at it. The average interest rate on a savings account in America right now, when this episode was recorded, is 0.35%. Whereas a high yield savings account is, right now you can find anywhere from 2.75 all the way up to 4% is what we're looking at. Some of them are a little more than 4, and so that's nearly 10 times more than the average savings account at your local credit union, your bank, all of that. And so again, they're able to offer this because they don't have a brick and mortar. They're not having to pay those operating expenses of that building, so they can do this. So let's look. Let's take for example, Ben sitting here with me. Let's use him as an example. So if Ben is saving for a house, so he's getting married in November, and I'm sure once they get everything settled, they're eventually going to want to buy a house. So where's Ben going to put that money? So if Ben puts $10,000 he's already saved up into a high yield savings account at a 3% annual percentage yield, and he doesn't touch it for a year, he'll have earned $300 in interest by the end of the year after that 12 months. So again, $300, that's great. It's not amazing, but on the flip side, say Ben doesn't put his money in a high yield savings account and he just puts it into a standard savings account at his bank with the national savings rate of about 0.35%, Ben only would have made $35. And so $35 to $300, I'm going to take the $300. And so that's just a rundown of what a high yield savings does, why it's better than your traditional savings. But also, here's the thing about that as well, is I've talked to people and they think that it's life-changing having money in a high yield savings account. The high yield savings account didn't really do anything for you. It got you $300. That's not life-changing. I mean, I can do a lot of things to make $300. So again, it's not life-changing. What is life-changing is Ben saying, hey, I'm going to save up $10,000. Him saving up $10,000 in a short amount of time, that is what is life-changing. When you decide to get on a plan and to save money. A high-yield savings account is more of a tool to just give you a little bit more than your traditional savings account at your bank. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the high-yield savings account and stuff like that. So the show is, I hope that it is something that you're enjoying. If you want to leave a review, I would love that. One, because it helps me know, hey, what do you like to hear about this show? And so I want to thank Ben for making the show run. And remember, you can always contact me through Instagram at I'm Will Evans. And if you want to be a part of the show or have a question, you can send me an email at ask@evans-fc.com and put question in the subject line. This is The Will Evans Show.